Baseball is back, and there really is nothing like a home team advantage. That's why Team Toyota makes an obvious choice for your next vehicle purchase or service. With their MVP pricing guarantee, teammates reward program, and streamlined customer experience, their award-winning sales and service departments are there for all of your vehicle needs. A home team advantage is nothing without family and community. Their employees are part of the family, they're part of your town, and we're all part of the team. Visit teamtoyota.net and choose one of their 3 locations in Langhorne, Glen Mills, or Princeton.
It's time to panic. Are we panicking yet? I feel like it's time to panic. What about you guys?
No, I'm not panicking. But me, of all people, I'm not panicking. You're still sitting 20 games over 500 as we sit today. You're going to have winning streaks. You're going to have losing streaks. You got to take them kind of in stride. Are some things starting to be a little alarming? Maybe. But I don't think you're taking that panic-stricken route yet.
Yep. Yeah, best record in baseball still. The only thing, to kind of echo what Rick said, alarming is the offense. It's starting to kind of look exactly like it looked in Game 6 and 7 of the NLCS, which is just a reminder that in baseball that can happen. Teams can go cold, lineups can go cold, and this lineup didn't go cold for almost 2 months of the season for the most part. But it's happened, oddly enough. It started at Coors Field, which was strange, and then San Francisco, where not a great ballpark to hit, and not a ballpark where they've had a lot of success, and it's kind of continued through the first couple games of the Giants series.
And on that, welcome into the old Phillies Talk Podcast, baby. Ricky Metallico, our Phillies pre- and post-game producer, Sean Kane. I'm Spencer McKercher. Just hit on it, guys. It is hilarious to see kind of the panic in some of these Phillies fans. 38-18 as we record this on Wednesday before the series finale with the Giants in San Francisco. Sean, you kind of just mentioned kind of the House of Horrors down there in San Francisco at Oracle Park. 2-16 in their last 18 games dating back to 2018. They've lost 8 straight, I believe, coming in here. Their last win was June 19th of 2021. Kind of hilarious. Rhys Hoskins had 2 home runs that game. Ronald Torreyes had a home run during that game. Our boy Toe. What do you guys see? Obviously, the pitching's doing its thing, especially on Tuesday night. Zach Wheeler, dominant, 6 innings, 9 Ks, only 2 walks, no runs, 2 hits allowed. He kind of settled in. He mentioned in the post game, kind of talking about it kind of took him a little bit to get settled in with the mound out there. And I feel like that's not the first time we've heard some of these starters complain about visiting mounds. But yeah, what's going on with this offense, Ricky?
I think first and foremost, obviously the runners in scoring position. It's becoming an issue again. But I mean, this happens every once in a while with this team where they go on this little hiatus from coming up big with runners in scoring position. The other thing is the power. Where the heck is the power gone on this team? I mean, you're talking about you have 5 guys in this lineup that any at bat they could hit the ball out of the ballpark, and it's just not happening right now. Schwarber hit the one out in San Francisco. Other than that, you're kind of hard pressed to find a ball that was crushed. And this team. I still think this team will live and die by the long ball by the time all is said and done this season. And right now, they're just not getting the production, not coming up big with runners in scoring position. That's always an issue. I mean, whenever you look at a game score and you check out a box score, you're going to see the first thing you should look at. What did the Phillies do with runners in score position? Well, you don't score a run in a 10-inning game. That's hard to do, number one, in Major League Baseball now, especially with the ghost runner. They were 0 for 5, but, I mean, you look across the way, the Giants were 0 for 9 in that game. So 0 for 14 with runners in scoring position between 2 teams. That's not the prettiest game in the world. And I will say this much about Oracle Park. It is a great place to pitch. I used to love going out there and pitching, especially if the wind was even blowing in a little. The air is much heavier out there. There's a lot, you get the fog, you get the cooler temperatures. It's a lot tougher to hit out there. I mean, as Sean said a little bit earlier, a little bit shocking that up in Denver they didn't just tee off, because that's a place where hitters pad their stats, and it didn't happen this time. It's just one of those things where kind of everything went a little backwards on them, and it carried over to San Francisco.
Yeah. Now, what I've
ahead.
noticed from the lineup specifically, Schwarber is giving you some production, not necessarily the power, but he's up to 240 as of, Wednesday morning for average for him, which is considerably up from where he generally is. Realmuto with his hitting streak has given him some production. Harper, by and large, has had a good May. The two guys that I think have kind of tapered off lately were two guys that have really carried them a lot in the previous weeks are Bohm and Stott, the two young guys, Alec Bohm and Bryson Stott. Bohm was bound to taper off a little bit. He's been superhuman, or at least he was in the first 6-7 weeks of the season. Rob Thompson mentioned he has a few nagging injuries going on. He had a rough day at third base in the series opener in San Francisco. And Stott started off cool, and then he really, he carried the offense for a couple weeks in early May, and he looks like he's kind of pressing a little bit at the plate right now. So Bohm and Stott, I think, are just a big part of what they do offensively. A couple of really good young hitters who can hit for average, can have a little pop. And they're just struggling right now, and that happens. And I think as a result, the Phillies offense is kind of, the lineup's lost a little of that depth they've had. And it's kind of, you've seen the results these last handful of games.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. I think the last time that we, all three of us got together on the podcast, we talked about how Bryson Stott was starting to heat up there. And then, they go out west, and he's fouled a few balls off his leg the last few games. I don't know if that's bothering him at all. I know he had the one back here at home. And then he fouled one off his foot yesterday as well on Tuesday.
He does that a lot throughout the season. I mean, if you look at, I would say he does it the most out of any Phillies hitter. He fouls the ball off of his shins, off of his knees, off of his ankles, like he did in the game in San Francisco. I want to see if you guys find this a little interesting or maybe even a little bit funny. The one thing, the Phillies go on a 3-game losing streak, and the first names that come up are Rob Thompson is messing around too much, and then Nick Castellanos can't play anymore. Do you guys find that very interesting, or is that just something that people have been holding back because of the winning that this Phillies team has been doing?
Well, here's the thing. I think I've been, being the kind of like a social media guy here, for us, I tweeted up the other day. I think it's hilarious. They went on this win streak, we're dominant throughout the beginning of May, even towards the latter here before this road trip. And everyone was crediting Rod Thompson for being the manager and being the man. And, he had that comment to our good buddy Matt Gelb the other day in the press room. He was like, oh, it's the best 50-game start since the Mariners in 2001. And Rob said, well, what they do, and they didn't win a championship. And kind of, the fans clinged onto that. And now you see, DFA, Taijuan Walker, DFA, Whit Merrifield, and trade Castellanos. And it's just like, and now the blame is back on Rob. It's crazy how fast these things change. But yeah, Sean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Thompson's track record speaks for itself. I mean, it's crazy to me that anybody would be upset with him. He's been phenomenal since taking over, midway through the 22 season. And for the most part, he hits the right buttons. He presses the right buttons. I think he does a good job generally with the bullpen, which is a big part of being a manager. And the guys play for him. He's got that even demeanor. So, no, I think he's the least of their problems. The Castellanos thing, I think, has some merit. Ricky and I were talking about this the other night that, when you have a guy, high-profile guy who's hitting generally for the most part under 200 all season, but as you just mentioned, Spence, they have the best 50-game start in franchise history. That covers a lot of that up. But you lose a couple games and Castellanos still not hitting, I think a lot of people will just kind of look at that batting average and be like, come on, man, let's get going. It's been 2 months here. His career here, he had the rough first year, and he was an all-star last year, but he was up and down. And the playoffs, he was up and down. He was great against the Braves and really struggled in the NLCS against the Diamondbacks, and that's just kind of who he is. But I think, the Castellanos stuff, I think, would have a little more merit, criticism pointed his way than certainly would be pointed Rob Thompson's way.
For sure. And Nick ranks pretty much at the lower half of every offensive rating in the National League. And that's the thing. We were talking about it, obviously the conversation has come up as we sit here May 29th, post-Memorial Day. We're a month and a half away from the trade deadline, I guess 2 months away, really. And his name has been brought up in trade talks. And I don't know. I think, I've always said Nick is kind of like a glue guy to that roster as well, where I think everyone loves him, even when he struggles, everyone's like, oh, it's just Nick, he'll bounce back. But I mean, Ricky, when we come towards the end of July here, and as we get closer and more into the season, is Nick Castellanos maybe on the trade block if he continues to struggle?
I don't know what teams actually would want a guy like Nick Castellanos. He's got to start hitting the baseball. I mean, think about it. Who's going to want a 180 hitter, 190 hitter who's not hitting for any power? Major League Baseball now, guys that make $20 to $25 million, you better be hitting the ball out of the ballpark. That's not him right now. So, I mean, it's easy to say trade somebody,
Right.
but I mean, you have to have a trade partner. And I mean, this is going to sound weird, but I think one of the only ways to do that would be to go after a big fish. And that would be a way to counter some of the money that you may have to pay for that big fish. And I think you both know who I'm talking about. I think that would be the only way that you could
fish an intentional play on words there.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that would be one way to solve that issue. But I don't know. I don't even know if the Phillies are going to be in that pond, to be completely honest with you. So I just think it's one of those things where you may be stuck with him and you have to hope that he could turn things around. He has had months where he has looked like a superstar since he's been here. So we can't sit back here and say he doesn't have it in him, because I believe he does. The guy's got power. Just where is it? Why isn't it showing up is the question. And maybe it's his approach. We hear all the time, well, I don't really have an approach. I just go up there and see it and swing. Maybe he should have a little bit of an approach. But, when all is said and done, there will be moves made at the deadline. There's no doubt, because we're getting to the point in time where Schwarber's contract's starting to run out. You have a JT behind the plate. You don't know how many years that will last. And I mean, when does this rope, how long is this rope? I think this is an all-in time for the Phillies. And I think come, possible trade deadline, I wouldn't doubt if we see a closer in here and if we see an outfielder in here.
Celebrity cook Steve Martirano brings his Italian-American cooking back home to Philly. Enjoy Martirano's Prime at Rivers Casino and Steve's famous meatballs with Sunday gravy, prime steaks, and more. Make reservations for Martirano's Prime on OpenTable.
That's a great point. I mean, it is. It's one of those things where, the glaring hole is Nick, unfortunately, in the lineup. And like you said, Rick, they're all in. This is the year to do it. They're 30-18 here. They have a 5-game lead currently on Wednesday afternoon here when we record this over the Braves in the National League East. Now's the time. And if, it's going to be interesting to see how short his leash is come July with Dave Dombrowski and company. But, like I said, I think we'll see. Hopefully, we got June coming up. So Schwarber Fest is coming soon, and hopefully Nick can kind of join him in that. Let's talk a little bit positive, Sean. JT Realmuto, 17-game hitting streak, now set the record for the longest hitting streak as a catcher. We'll hit on that. And then Edmundo Sosa. I mean, ever since Trey Turner has gone down, Edmundo Sosa has been rock solid at the plate for the Phillies. Over his last 6 games, batting 360, or last 7 games, batting 362. He's tied for the National League in triples with 4, with Corbin Carroll and company. Sean, we'll start with JT. Obviously, last night he said, it's great. No, he didn't even know. Our good buddy Corey Simon asked, he's like, hey, did you know? And he's like, oh, to be honest, I had no idea. But it's pretty cool. But, winning kind of matters here. But at least JT's positive that we can look at the plate so far.
For sure. And I mean, the job he's done since moving up the 2-hole, which, is a different place to hit than where he's accustomed to in the middle of the lineup. He's been outstanding. I think his average, as we sit here, is right around 285. He's got the hitting streak, as you mentioned, and, he's asked to do so much, obviously, defensively with the pitching staff. And then to give you the bonus of obviously what he's done at the plate, and we know how he runs, and that's why you can put him in the 2-hole. He's been great, and he's been great. He was banged up a little bit, obviously, a few weeks ago. He seems, knock on wood, that he's generally been healthy here during this road trip. So he's been awesome. You mentioned Sosa. I mean, just the way he drives the ball, too. You mentioned his batting average, but he's really driving the ball, extra base hits, the triples. He's hit the ball out of the ballpark a few times. Played a really good shortstop. It's crazy. They haven't missed a beat since they lost the $300 million shortstop. And now Trey, earlier this week had a little the Phillies didn't call it a setback, but Ricky just did. They're going to pull back. They're going to pull back on Trey a little bit because he had some soreness and stiffness in the hammies. Because because it looked like he was coming back real quick. And then obviously I think they had that luxury because Edmundo Sosa has performed. They certainly don't have a hole at shortstop right now. Take it easy with Trey, play the long game with Trey, and that's because of Edmundo Sosa. And all good teams, championship teams, need guys like Sosa who answer the bell when their number's called, and he's done that and then some. It's been pretty remarkable to see the way he's played.
The analogies today have been great. We got fish analogies, we got answering the bell. Shout out to the Phils. Speaking of JT, real quick, the lineup. I know obviously this will be evergreen kind of come, but the lineup for Wednesday just came out. No JT Realmuto in the lineup. Garrett Stubbs will bat 8th. Christian Pacheco bat 9th. Merrifield in left. Stott at 2nd. Castian right. Bohm at 3rd as I go up the lineup. Harper at 3rd.
I was hoping you were going up.
Yeah. Short the leading off. Our guy is batting 2nd, playing shortstop tonight. Edmundo Sosa will bat 2nd today on Wednesday. Rick, just give a little more on Edmundo Sosa. What have you seen from him at the plate? I mean, since Trey went down, he's leading the NL in slugging percentage. As Sean just mentioned, he's really hitting the ball well.
He is getting pitches to drive. I mean, when you think about it, how many pitches do you see guys go up there and swing through that should be crushed? Sometimes you go through these stages where you're seeing the ball very well, you're barreling everything. But I think in his case, I think this is very important for a hitter. You don't try to do too much. I think people think that these guys go up there and think home run every single pitch. Number one, the pitcher's got to make a mistake. Number two, you have to have the right swing on the baseball to hit a home run. I think with Edmundo Sosa, he's taking whatever the pitcher gives him. If you're going to give him a high fastball, he can get on top of that ball and he will drive it gap to gap. He's not trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark, but he's hitting the ball strong into the gaps, and he's using his legs right now. I think when you have a guy who could barrel a baseball and barrel at the I guess when you look at it right now at the rate he's doing it, I mean, it's gonna turn into a lot of hits. And I just think his confidence level is so high right now that anything you throw him, he's seeing it a lot bigger than a golf ball. He's seeing a beach ball come in right now, and he's not missing his pitches. And it's very simple to say, but sometimes you go on these hot streaks. Other times you go up there, the ball looks like a little ping pong ball coming in, and you have no chance to hit it, even if it's right down the middle. He's not over swinging. He's taking what the pitcher gives him, and he's driving the ball. It's that simple for him.
Yeah, and kind of just to wrap up this little road trip, and Edmundo, and that's the thing. You've seen some stuff on social media over the last few weeks here of, he needs to be an everyday player. I think Edmundo Sosa is a perfect bench player, 1. 2, they were talking about Trey Turner moving to the outfield, which just I don't think is the right option at all.
Somebody mentioned that?
Yeah. I'm not going to say who, but
okay.
There was a poll that was put out at some point over the week that should Trey Turner move to the outfield and Edmundo Sosa get every day at bats going forward, and kind of hysterical.
Exposure is a problem. You get a guy that's a bench player. Sooner or later, they're going to figure him out, and they're going to double time him on the scouting reports.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think, just a glaring thing. Corey's article from last night. The Phillies scored 16 runs so far on this 1-4 road trip. 6 of them came in that bottom of the 9th comeback win. Kind of wild. And, and then the even crazier stat, it's been 4 straight games where they haven't scored with that ghost runner in extra innings. It's when this lineup is clicking, it's almost like how do they not score with a runner on second in these extra innings? But obviously, yeah. And as Bohm said, JT said it last night, and Rob has kind of put it in everyone's minds in his post-game comments. It's just baseball, right? Like, you knew this was going to come when they get off to such a big, start like that, a hot start. You knew going out west that something was going to happen, but they can afford a little skid that they're going on right now. And obviously, for the first time since last September, losing 3 straight games. Hopefully that changes today on Wednesday. Speaking of today's date, May 29th, 2010, the 14-year anniversary of Roy Halladay's perfect game down in Miami. I know our digital guys just got the post-game clip up from that entire post-game live. That's on YouTube if you guys want to check it out. But Sean, I know before we got started, you guys said that you and Ricky, and I think Greg Murphy was the host that night.
Pretty sure. I haven't seen the clips, but I believe Murph was hosting that night. Yeah.
Just walk us through that whole night. What the Flyers playoff game was going on that day.
Yeah, it was game one of the Yeah. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup final. So that was the big story in Philadelphia that night against the Flyers Blackhawks. Michael B was hosting our Flyers coverage because, back in the day, he would kind of jump around to whatever the marquee event was. So Michael was doing the Flyers with all the guys, and myself and Ricky and Greg Murphy were working on the Phillies that night. I was producing the pre and post game shows. And, with Halladay, that was his first year. He won the Cy Young that year, and he was outstanding from the outset. So you knew there was always a chance he would throw a gem. Obviously, you're not thinking a perfect game. But that was Josh Johnson pitched for the Marlins that game, and he was excellent. Like, he was awesome. So they needed that. It wasn't like they had a cushion. He needed to be that good just to win the game. It was a 1-0 game. He was excellent. And it was just kind of, we kind of, you saw it coming. You're like, he's great tonight. And, I don't think the Marlins had many answers for him. And to see it, and I remember the ground ball to third base to end the game, and we were going nuts. And it was something I'll always remember.
I will tell you this much. The one thing about Roy Halladay, anytime it got to the 4th inning, you started thinking no-hitter. With other pitchers, you're thinking they get through 7, then maybe there's a chance. I think you always thought if Halladay got through like the 6th inning, it's going to be a no-hitter or there's going to be something special happening. And it was awesome. I'll never forget because we were very focused on the Flyers game, kind of one eye on the Phillies, one eye on the Flyers game. And then all of a sudden, once the 5th inning came, we were all next to we had that one live TV. Everybody was right next to that one live TV watching it because they didn't want to miss pitch. And he did not disappoint. And it was something special. I mean, a perfect game. You don't get to talk about that too often. But it wasn't just that. It was also a little bit further in the sense that, you watch him later on that season and he throws the no-hitter against the Reds. I almost thought he threw better in that game. Yeah. So, I mean, that perfect game, though, was special.
Yeah, and I feel like all the
special guest here, by the way. We got a special guest.
Some guy. He looks familiar.
Came from Greece.
There he is. How you doing? What's going on? The Eagles.
Our guy, Michael Barkan.
I watched the game and I watched post game last night from London, England, starring Ricky Bowe, Sean Kane, and of course Ashlyn Sullivan.
Yes,
it was unbelievable.
It's good to have you back, buddy.
The Brits love post game live. I'm telling you.
Well, speaking of the Brits, we'll be heading out there here shortly. We'll get to that.
And there he goes.
Yeah.
There he goes. The superstar.
You never know we're going to get the podcast.
Airport.
Yeah, let's give it. There he is. Here we go. Now he's going. What's going on?
Somebody!
Look who's here.
Running on a pod right now.
By the way, he's in Manioc right now.
Broadcasting live from Manioc.
It's really warm in here.
It is. It's a little warm in here. That was awesome. Shout out to our listeners and our viewers. Michael Barkan, man, one of a kind. It's good to see him. We haven't seen him in what? Like it's been like 10 days.
A week and a half.
Like a month.
Yeah. It's good to have our guy back, man. Shout out to Ashlyn Sullivan though, and she did a great job covering for him, and of course Amy Fadul as well. But going back just real quick, I was 14 at that time, and I remember, and I think this is the case for everybody. The Flyers in the Stanley Cup playoff, or the Stanley Cup final, I should say. Everyone is so locked into that, and then all of a sudden, basically like 40 minutes into the game, we're already in the 5th inning in Miami with Josh Johnson dealing, Roy Halladay dealing, and all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, yeah, he's perfect. And Ricky, it's kind of funny that you said that. Every time he had that, every time he went on the mound, there was a chance that you could see history with Roy. It's crazy. We talked about it kind of at the top of the show, but over the last few, and I know he's been struggling, but when Zach gets rolling like that, like he did last night, he didn't allow a hit into the 4th inning. He starts rolling like that, and I kind of get the same sense, when that, of course, during the White Sox and Rocky series when they were here late April, we had the graphic prepped already, back-to-back nights with Spencer Turnbull and him, but I feel like that graphic needs to be prepped at some point here. He's about to turn 35. They were asked yesterday, his fastball is sitting at 98 now, approaching his 35th birthday. Do you guys get that same sense sometimes when Zach's on the mound?
Yeah, but I think you notice right away, pitch count wise. I think he was a little high last night to be able to throw a no-hitter. They were battling him pretty well early on in that ball game. But you go a little deeper. I think the one thing about Zach Wheeler, he could get through 5 innings and you don't notice that there hasn't been a hit, and you're like, wait a minute, something could happen here. But
That's
yeah,
what I'm
he definitely has the stuff to do it every time out.
And
Definitely.
The Halladay comparison is, obviously Roy Halladay is a Hall of Famer. Maybe Wheeler will be one day, but I think it's pretty accurate with those two guys. Their demeanors, big power pitchers, right-handers, and they're just very stoic on the mound and really off the mound too. And the excellence that they expect of themselves, I think, is a pretty common link between the two of them. Like Roy Halladay would go out, throw 7 innings, give up a couple runs, and you listen to him talk after the game, and it was like he got shelled for 6 or 7 runs, and the Phillies lost. Like he wasn't happy, and we've seen that from Wheeler a bunch of times, including this year when he doesn't go as deep into games as he wants, but he still goes up maybe 1 run, maybe 2, and he's furious almost. You can just tell it's really bothering him. Those guys expect excellence of themselves every time they're out, and I think a lot of the great ones do, obviously. But those two guys, to me, that's a pretty common link there. I think the way they kind of carry themselves and go about their business.
It's awesome. Zach's been on a tear to start the season. Hopefully he continues. Ranger obviously had a little bit of a setback in Colorado. I'm not too worried about him.
Everybody has a setback in Colorado. That place sucks to pitch in.
There it is. Yep.
He figured it out though. It was the first 2 innings. Then he really
takes a little while.
It was like that, and he was back. But the damage was done. But
he avoids maybe the scariest play of the year so far with that comeback. And Bryce Stott makes a great play. Rangers land on the ground, kind of just thanking the heavens that he's okay. But yeah, I'm not too worried about Ranger. We got to close up here. 2 more things just real quick. Angel Hernandez retired, and Ricky, I know on postgame on Tuesday or on pregame on Tuesday. I believe your term was good riddance. Thank goodness. Give me your favorite Angel Hernandez story if you have one.
Yeah. I think it just goes straight back to Kyle Schwarber. It has to be.
Yeah.
I mean, Kyle Schwarber was not only arguing for himself, he was arguing for the Brewers too. If you remember, the Brewers bench was like, yeah, go get him, because he stunk that night. I mean, that was all-time horrible pitch calling. And Kyle Schwarber let him know, down, up, in, out. You were horrible all over the place. Good for Schwarbs.
Yeah, I think that's got to be my favorite. Sean, what about you?
that was great, obviously. And the Harper one last year was pretty good, too, on the check swing, and Angel Hernandez was up in third base. It was late in the season. They had already clinched. They had just clinched against the Pirates maybe the night or two nights before, and Harper's in the game, and it might have been – I don't know if it was the last home game, but we were getting there. And he rung him up on a check swing. Harper had a few things to say. Hernandez throws him out. Harper's going nuts, and that's when Harper threw his helmet up into the over the dugout into the stands. Some kid caught it, which was like incredible. And then afterwards, Harper, I'm going to get fined for this, and he teed off on him. Like the players were just tired of it. They were tired of it. The guy had been a subpar umpire, putting it kindly, for a long time. There seemed to be no repercussions for him not doing a good job, and the players just had enough. And I don't think there's a lot of sad people around Major League Baseball that he decided to hang it up. No, there's not. It's funny, Ricky mentioned it yesterday on pregame, he just wants to spend more time with his family.
I don't think that's the case.
I fully disagree. I think MLB eventually just got tired of it. Because the whole thing that came out, they didn't want him doing playoff games, and they literally wheeled in the TV.
How long do you want to get railed on before you just, okay, I'm done? I mean, you've been doing it 30 plus years. You're done.
Yep. All right. Last thing, we'll close it up here. Sean, I believe you know this. You and I talked about this on our call before this Giants series, but Rick, or Sean, if you can chime in too. Do you know the last three Phillies players? Two are kind of obvious. One's really obvious. The other one's maybe not so obvious. And the third one from a while ago, the last three Phillies players that hit splash shots at Oracle Park into McCovey Cove.
Splash shots.
The last three.
Two current players, two current Phillies.
Two current Phillies.
Schwarber and Harper.
No.
Not Schwarber.
Really?
Harper, yes.
Harper, yes. And a splash shot.
The last guy to do it.
Yeah. Stott?
Yeah.
Okay. That's exactly right. And then the third one was in 2013.
He was a heralded Phillies prospect from Nebraska.
There it is.
Never really reached what they thought he would be, kind of during those down years of Phillies.
Nebraska.
Yeah.
Left-hand hitter.
Yes.
That's even people from Nebraska.
Wasn't Don Brown.
Wasn't Don Brown. A little after Don Brown's peak was this guy.
Well,
Cody
Oh, Cody Ashe.
Yeah, how about it? Shout out to Cody Ashe.
Cody Ashe. I don't really remember that game, but I know
don't
we did
remember
talk
him hitting
about it.
into the water. So
Yeah, I was. I don't remember that game. But yeah, thought that third and last name was kind of funny. But hey, let's bounce back here. Wrap up here. They're off Thursday. They welcome the Cardinals to town, and then hopefully Rhys Hoskins and the Brewers. Well, the Brewers are definitely coming to town. We'll see if Rhys Hoskins comes to town next week, Monday through Wednesday, and then we're off to London, or at least I am.
you are.
Rick, I know. I'm excited to head over across the pond first time. Me, Corey, and Taryn should be a good time. Shout out to our guy, UK Phillies. He's all stoked up, and we're excited to get over there. But I can't believe it's already here. But yeah, hey, hopefully they end this road trip kind of strong here on Wednesday afternoon, 3:45 first pitch. We will see you hopefully Sunday or Monday after the Cardinal series and before the Brewers series. For Spencer McKercher, that's Sean Kane. That's Rick Metallico. We'll catch you next week.